Good morning, world. How are we doing this morning? It's your girl RaevenSky, and I am here to see another beautiful day today. So I woke up at 3:33 on the dot. Don't know why, but I'm here with you guys. Can you imagine waking up 3:33? Oh, what a sign is that? Is it a good one or a bad one, guys? For those who know things and those things, kind of things, do drop a comment in the box comment section telling me what it means to wake up at 3:33. I had to look twice on the clock. 3:33, and it's so cold this morning. Where's my other phone? I went to bed last night, came home, wasn't feeling myself, wasn't feeling so good. So I just fell asleep. Just knocked out and fell asleep. Right? Oh my God. Good morning. Mm, all right. Let's do this. Let's do this. Let's see what's up. Let's see what's up. Let's see what's up. Mm, I just want to. Mm, 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 mm. So yeah, this morning we're doing a regular audio chat, guys. Yeah, audio show will be at 10 today, later on in the daytime, guys. Mm-hmm. Oh, I like to listen to my horoscope. Mm-hmm. I like to listen to my horoscope. Mm, damn. Yes, it will. Mm. Yeah, guys, so I'm editing some content on my phone. Yes, for my loyal fans account. So in case you guys want to go check out my loyal fans account, do go ahead. Alright, so we're going to listen to an audio clip in the meantime, in between time. Okay, guys? Yeah, man. Audio clip. People got crazy respect for you, no joke or speech. Ooh.
Respecting you, haven't they? Good. You see, at first, they watched you with side eyes and smirks. You were background noise, a glitch in their carefully filtered algorithm of who matters.
Yeah.
But now their tone changed. The laugh they used to throw your way, it chokes in their throat.
Yeah.
Because now, people got crazy Wawa respect for you. And it's driving them mad. Why? Because respect born from survival, endurance, and transformation. That's not just respect. That's fear dressed in admiration. You didn't get respect handed to you. No. You ripped it out of life's iron jaws while bleeding, while broken, while mocked. You earned the kind of respect that makes people nervous when they say your name. Because it's not just your wins they admire. It's what you survived to get them. Let me tell you what they're whispering now. How the hell is he still standing? She was supposed to fold by now. They were never supposed to make it this far.
Hey guys, what's up? Welcome, welcome,
and you
welcome,
didn't
welcome to
just
my
survive.
live.
You flipped the damn
So we're
script.
listening to our
You turned the
audio track
page they
this
wrote you off
morning.
on
Yeah,
and started
man.
writing their ending.
By Anios
That kind of
Marphysis.
power, it demands respect. It forces it, even from those who would rather choke on glass than admit you're winning. They used to look down on you. Now they watch you like a warning. You're a walking caution sign, an urban legend, a glitch in the matrix they can't unsee. You went from never gonna be shit to watch your tone when you mention them. You're no longer invited to conversations. You are the conversation. Your name travels in hushed tones through boardrooms, group chats, and enemy camps. Why? Because power recognizes power. And survival at your level? That's a different kind of royalty. You didn't beg for a throne. You became one, a walking empire, a monument built from scar tissue and revenge. And now the same people who wouldn't lend you a hand, they'd sell their soul just to stand in your shadow. That's not just respect. That's historical memory. That's ancestral level awareness. Your energy is archived in their fear responses now. And let me say this clearly. They know. They know what they did. They know what they said. They remember how they laughed, how they walked right past you, like you weren't even breathing. But now, they'd rearrange their whole damn schedule if they saw your name on a guest list. They'd trade their dignity just to say they knew you before. They want proximity now, because you're not just respected. You're a living reminder that their judgment was trash. You beat the algorithm, you bypassed the gatekeepers, you dodged the bullets, you outlasted the mockery, you outgrew the trap they built for you with their own bare hands. Now they're shaking your hand with a smile, but checking their pulse after. Because something about you feels lethal now. Something about you feels untouchable. You ever notice how people treat you different when they realize you don't need them? Yep. That's when the switch flips. That's when the panic sets in. Because dependence breeds comfort. But independence, that breeds power. You don't need their validation. You became your own source of light. You don't need their stage. You built your own platform out of the bones of your setbacks. You are the proof that silence is a strategy, that patience is a weapon, that isolation was just the training ground. And now, you walk in rooms like the final level of a game they're stuck on. Let them call it luck. Let them call it timing. Let them call it a phase. They'll label your success anything but earned, because calling it earned would force them to admit they could have done it too. But they folded, they blinked, they bowed out. You didn't. You stared your demons dead in the eye and said, move. That's why they respect you now, because you didn't just win, you rewrote the fucking rules. You are no longer one of them. You're a symbol now, a glitch in their old belief system. You changed the code, you hacked the simulation, you showed the world that resilience is royalty, and now they watch you, closely, carefully, cautiously, some with admiration, some with envy, some with rage, but all with respect. Because even your silence speaks louder than their screams. Because even your shadow has presence now. And the beautiful part, you haven't even started yet. This version of you, it's just the opening act. They respected the trailer. They ain't ready for the movie. And here's the kicker. You didn't even ask for this respect. You didn't market yourself. You didn't beg for eyes. You just kept moving in silence, in shadows, in straight war mode. And the world had no choice but to turn its damn head. Because when someone rises without applause, when someone levels up without permission, when someone glows up while they're still bleeding, that's not just impressive. That's frightening to people who never built anything real. Now they're complimenting confessions. Their congratulations feel like guilt, because you remind them of what they could have done, but didn't. And what's crazy, you still walk humble. You still don't flex the way you could. You still show up calm, while your very existence burns holes in their egos, because the respect people have for you now, it's not loud, it's not performative, it's deep, it's internal, it's uncomfortable. You ever notice how some folks can't even look you in the eye anymore? That's not shyness, that's shame, that's memory, that's them remembering who they were when you had nothing, and realizing they don't deserve access now that you've become everything. They respect you because you survived what they would have died in, because you walked through fire and came out not only breathing, but glowing. They respect you now because they see the scars, and they know damn well those aren't decorative. They see your peace and realize it cost more than their entire identity. They hear your silence and feel the pressure of everything you've held back. Respect like this, it's not born in trophies. It's born in trenches. They respect you now because you kept going when nothing made sense anymore. Because you showed up to life when life stopped showing up for you. Because you planted seeds in soil meant to choke you. And now you're harvesting power from the very grave they dug. Let me break it to you. You were never meant to be respected, not in their story. You were the filler character, the comic relief, the tragic one, the failure they used to make themselves feel better. But somewhere along the way, you flipped the arc. You turned the background character into the final boss. And now their story makes no sense unless it includes your comeback, your rise, your presence. You are the plot twist they can't undo. That's why they respect you now, not just because of who you are, but because of who you refused to remain. Let's get real. Respect like this makes people sick, because you didn't change for them. You changed in spite of them. You didn't get softer, you got sharper. You didn't get louder, you got colder. You didn't rise to prove a point. You rose because falling again wasn't an option. And they feel that every time you enter a room, the air shifts, because you bring the kind of energy that reminds people of what they buried inside themselves, just to stay average. And that's the real threat. It's not your money, not your status, not your glow. It's the fact that you're walking proof that greatness is a decision, and you made it. Let them whisper. Let them act surprised. Let them replay your name like a warning. Because this version of you, it's not even close to your final form. You haven't even gotten disrespectful yet. You're still letting them live in the lie that they can catch up. But deep down, they know the truth. You lapped them in silence. You outgrew their entire blueprint. You became the blueprint. Now they imitate your mannerisms, copy your speech, mimic your moves. But they'll never duplicate your pain-to-power ratio, because you lived through shit they wouldn't survive a chapter of. That's why people got crazy respect for you now, because you didn't just evolve, you became a whole new species. Let them label it ego. Let them call it arrogance. Let them say, you changed. You're damn right, you changed. And that change became their new religion. They praise you now, even if their mouths won't say it. Their actions do. And the best part, you're still just getting started. You want to know the real reason they respect you now? Because you didn't die where they left you. They buried you in dirt and expected weeds. But you came back with roots made of vengeance and leaves sharp enough to cut their names out of your future. Now every time you rise, they lose a piece of their comfort. Because your rise is their reflection, and it burns. They respected you the moment they realized they could no longer control you. Not your time, not your energy, not your reactions. You stopped explaining. You stopped defending. You stopped showing up for people who wouldn't show up to your funeral. And that silence, that unnerved them. Because it wasn't weakness, it was calculation. You weren't gone. You were loading. You weren't quiet. You were plotting. And now you walk with the calm of someone who survived themselves. That's a different aura. That's not loud confidence. That's not fake flexing. That's the energy of someone who saw rock bottom, lit a fire under it, and turned it into a launch pad. And people feel that. Even if they don't understand it, they feel it. It's in your posture, in your gaze, in the way you don't flinch.
What's up, guys?
Anymore. In the way you don't chase
How we doing?
closure,
How we
don't
doing
beg
this
for
morning?
respect, don't shrink yourself to fit rooms you outgrew.
Welcome,
That's the type of
guys.
transformation that makes people second guess their entire
Ooh.
belief system. Because now, when they talk about loyalty, they remember how they vanished. When they talk about support, they remember how they went mute. And when they talk about who deserves success, they know they ain't on that list. You are. Because you paid for your power in pain. You paid in heartbreak, in isolation, in nights nobody checked on you, in mornings where getting up felt like climbing out of your own grave. And now that you're moving different, talking different, walking like you own the street that they laughed at you on, suddenly they can't stop watching. But here's what they'll never admit out loud. They don't just respect you. They fear you. Not because you're violent, not because you're reckless, but because you represent a version of themselves they'll never become. You carry your scars like armor. You took every betrayal and forged a crown out of the metal. You are the living embodiment of nothing to lose. And that makes you dangerous. Because people who faced their own hell don't flinch at earthly threats. You don't seek revenge. You become it. By staying focused, by becoming untouchable, by proving, without a single scream, that you were never the one to count out. Now they look at you like a storm they can't predict. You used to walk in with your head down. Now your presence drains the room of ego. People measure their worth by how close they can stand to you without crumbling. And the crazy part? You still haven't done them how they did you. You still haven't exposed the lies. You still haven't aired out what you know. Why? Because you don't need to. Success did the talking for you. Your glow did the justice. Your peace became your payback. Your absence became louder than their entire existence. And now they don't call you crazy anymore. They call you dangerous. They call you boss. They call you the one who made it out. They call you when they need direction, when they need advice, when life is finally serving them a dish called karma. Because you've seen that menu before. You've tasted betrayal with every course, and you didn't spit it out. You digested it, turned it into muscle, turned it into fuel, turned it into fire. So yeah, people got crazy why respect for you now. But not because of your looks, not because of your followers, not because of your wins. They respect you because you stood your ground when the ground was shaking. Because you never begged, you never folded, you never let their doubt become your reality. You rose, you became your own damn legend. And now every step you take is felt, not heard, felt. You want to know what's scarier than being hated? Being respected by people who once tried to destroy you. See, when people hate you, they're loud. When they envy you, they're messy. But when they respect you, when they realize you're beyond their reach, they go quiet. They go real, small, And that's where you are now. You're in the silent era of your domination. You don't need to swing. You don't need to bark. You don't need to remind anybody who you are, because the room already knows. You walk in, and suddenly, voices drop. People adjust themselves. Their confidence shrinks. Because your very presence now, it's a mirror, and some of them can't stand what they see. You're no longer the underdog. You're no longer the one they watch with amusement. You're the one they watch with calculation. They study your movements now. They track your growth. They whisper your quotes behind closed doors like scripture. Because what you've built, it's not just success, it's dominance. You became a standard, a walking milestone, a level they never thought they'd see up close. And here's what they'll never say to your face. I respect you because I watched you go through hell, and you made it look like evolution. They remember when you had nothing, when you were doubting yourself, second-guessing your every step.
So what's up, friends? What's up? What's up? What's up? So I'm listening to my usual audio clip in the mornings. How are we doing? Yeah, man.
You who loved too loud, who forgave too fast, who trusted too easily. And now that version is dead. What stands in your place is someone who learned how to weaponize silence, who learned how to pull back and let the storm find them instead.
No
You no
loving too
longer
hard
chase
anymore.
closure.
Hell
You
no.
embody it. You no longer need validation. You are the validation. And every time they see you now, they realize they helped build this. With their doubt, with their absence, with their disrespect. You used every ounce of their betrayal as bricks. And now you live in a mansion they swore you could never afford. Not with money, but with mindset. And now, suddenly, they're polite. They remember your birthday now. They like your posts. They start sentences with, "Hey, stranger," as if you're supposed to forget how invisible you were when you needed them most. But you didn't forget. You forgave, which is worse for them, because now they can't even hold your past against you. You outgrew it, outshined it, outran the narrative they tried to stuff you inside. Now they respect you, because pretending not to would be embarrassing. They don't want to admit it, but you've become a lesson, a walking cautionary tale. The one they underestimated, the one they tried to humble, the one they left out of every plan, every invite, every room.
Ain't that funny?
Now you're the one they report to, the one they watch from the sidelines while biting their tongues bloody. Because what you turned into, it wasn't luck, it wasn't timing, it was earned, and they know it. Every time you speak, they hear the edge in your voice, the weight behind every word, the calm of someone who could destroy them, but chooses not to. That's the highest level of respect, not fear of what you'll do, but awe at what you could do, and haven't. Because deep down, they know if you ever snapped, if you ever let it all out, the truth, the secrets, the cold silence you've been biting down on, you turn everything they built against you into a graveyard. But you're not interested in graves anymore. You're interested in skylines, and that's what kills them. They wanted you bitter. You came back bigger. They wanted you vengeful. You came back visionary. They wanted you to crawl. You came back flying. That's why they respect you now. Because even when you had every right to be a monster, you chose to become a myth. Something they can't touch, can't define, can't silence, can't kill. And the truth is, they'll never catch up. Because your journey wasn't made in the light. It was forged in the dark. And that darkness, belongs to you now. You mastered it, and now it walks beside you like a crown they can't steal. Let's get something straight. This respect they got for you now, it's not admiration, it's not love, it's not support, it's survival. It's them adapting to the new world where you became the storm. Because once upon a time, they laughed in your face. They measured your worth by your silence. They fed off your uncertainty. They liked you better broken. Because broken people, they're easier to dismiss. But now your silence is louder than their screams. Now your energy walks in before you do. Now when they say your name, they say it with caution, like it might summon something ancient, something divine, something they're not prepared to face. And they're not wrong. Because what you became isn't just a person. You became a presence, an atmosphere, the standard. People step different around you now. Speak slower. Choose words like weapons, because they know one wrong sentence and they'll expose how far beneath you they really are. That's what real respect does. It doesn't just change conversations, it changes posture. They stand straighter around you. They smile harder. They rehearse before speaking. Because your energy don't entertain foolishness anymore. You evolved past casual access. You don't do maybe energy now. It's either step correct or stay silent. Either move with purpose or disappear with history. See, they thought your glow up would be cute. They thought it'd come with filters and hashtags and temporary momentum. They didn't realize you were building a permanent frequency, something energetically expensive, something they can't fake, can't borrow, can't replicate. That's why they respect you now. Because deep down, they know you stopped playing the game and started creating your own arena. You left the table. You burned the blueprint. You unsubscribed from validation, and you built your own stage using every brick they threw at you. Now, you don't chase attention. Attention chases you. You ever notice how the people who once mocked your ambition are suddenly inspired by your discipline? How the ones who said you were too intense, too much, too serious, are now trying to copy the very focus they once ridiculed. Because that's what happens when the world realizes you weren't chasing clout. You were reconstructing your entire identity. They thought it was a phase. You made it a lifestyle. They thought you'd fade. You became a frequency. And now, they don't know how to reach you. Because the version of you they knew died in the fire. What came out of those flames can't be disrespected, can't be explained, can't be touched. Finally, let's talk about the ones who stayed silent while you built. You remember them? The ones who watched you fall, who saw the pain, who read the signs, and still said nothing. They thought silence meant safety, that staying neutral kept them clean. But now that the dust settled, your rise is a spotlight, and it's exposing every single shadow they hid in. Now they respect you in public because their private silence got loud. Now they clap for you, but their applause comes with a tremble, because they know they were never part of the story. They were just part of the lesson. You became the final form of everything they swore would break you. You turned trauma into tools. You turned solitude into strategy. You turned pain into presence. And now you walk through crowds like a prophecy fulfilled. You don't flex. You don't flaunt. You don't scream. You just exist. And that existence alone. It's uncomfortable to those who still see you through the lens of who you used to be.
No, my license. Just have to buy gas.
They're studying you again. Not with microscopes this time, not with therapists or private investigators or fake friends sliding into your DMs. No, this time it's different. This time they sent the professionals. The ones who don't flinch when bombs detonate. The ones trained to remain calm while their world burns. And you know what these hardened warriors discovered when they analyzed your response to betrayal? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And that terrified them more than any weapon ever could. You see, when they sabotaged your life, when they pulled every string to watch you collapse, when they orchestrated your downfall with surgical precision, they expected screaming, they expected revenge plots, they expected you to become exactly what they painted you as: unstable, dangerous, reactive. But you did something that broke their entire understanding of human psychology. You gave them silence. Not the silence of defeat, not the silence of shock, but the silence of someone who had already calculated every possible outcome and decided that their games weren't worth a single elevated heartbeat. The military calls it the zero response protocol now. They've got entire training programs built around what you did naturally. Special Forces operators sit in classrooms studying footage of how you handled betrayal, how you didn't flinch when they destroyed your reputation, how you didn't react when they turned everyone against you, how you maintained that supernatural calm while your entire world was being systematically dismantled. They're trying to replicate it, trying to teach it, trying to bottle that complete absence of reaction that made your enemies question their own existence. But here's what they don't understand, what they'll never understand. You didn't train for this. You didn't practice in controlled environments with safety protocols and extraction teams. You learned this in the field, in real time, with real consequences. Every betrayal was live ammunition. Every sabotage was an actual explosion. Every attack on your character was a legitimate assassination attempt on your soul. And through it all, you developed something they can't teach in any military academy: the ability to become absolutely unreachable. Think about it. When someone attacks you, they're not just trying to hurt you, they're trying to control you. They want your reaction because your reaction is their victory. Your tears are their trophies. Your anger is their validation. Your breakdown is their masterpiece. But you beautiful anomaly, you gave them nothing. Not a flinch, not a tremor, not even a change in your breathing pattern. You became a void where their attacks went to die. And that's when they realized they weren't dealing with a person anymore. They were dealing with something that had transcended the very concept of emotional manipulation. The Special Operations units have a term for this now. They call it tactical non-existence. It's when you become so non-reactive that you effectively cease to exist as a target. Your enemies can't hit what doesn't respond. They can't destroy what doesn't acknowledge destruction. They can't defeat what doesn't recognize the concept of defeat. You didn't just ignore their attacks. You made their attacks irrelevant. You turned their sabotage into background noise, their betrayal into white static, their carefully planned destruction into nothing more than weather patterns you barely noticed while focusing on something infinitely more important. And what was more important? Your evolution. While they were busy trying to destroy the old you, you were already building the new you. While they celebrated what they thought was your downfall, you were laying foundations they couldn't see. While they were posting their victory laps, you were quietly becoming something that would make their
So they say do
victories
the
look
work
like
in quiet, man.
participation trophies. You
Always
weren't
believe
ignoring
in
them
that
out of
one.
weakness. You were ignoring them because you were too busy becoming unstoppable to notice their little game. The military instructors show your case study to their most elite units now. They pause the presentation at the moment when any normal person would have snapped. That moment when the betrayal was so complete, so devastating, that even trained killers would have shown something. A twitch, a clenched jaw.
What's up, guys?
A slight change in
I am
posture.
here just in case you want to chat, but if you're just listening, that's fine too.
Absolute
I'm gonna drink me some
zero.
soda today.
Like watching a
I have
mountain
not
ignore a
drank soda
mosquito.
in almost a
Like
year.
watching an ocean
And
ignore a
yesterday when I
match.
went to get them
Like
cheese stick
watching
at
the
Pizza Hut,
universe ignore a
they gave
tantrum.
me a bottle of
How, they ask their
pineapple
commanding officers.
soda.
How does
Oh my
someone
God, it
achieve
smells
that
so
level
different
of
from what I'm used to.
non-reaction? And the officers, these warriors who've seen everything, who've been trained to handle anything, they just shake their heads because they know the truth. This isn't something you learn. This is something you become. This is what happens when pain stops being painful because you felt it so many times it's become familiar.
Welcome, guys. Do remember to go subscribe and share my broadcast.
Every possible variation. This is what
Grim Grit
happens
style
when
this
someone
morning.
transcends the basic programming of human emotional response. You didn't just develop thick skin. You developed an entirely different nervous system. One that doesn't recognize sabotage as a threat because you've reclassified it as education.
Yep.
One that doesn't process betrayal as pain because you've recoded it as data. One that doesn't interpret attacks as attacks but as desperate attempts by inferior systems to remain relevant. You became emotionally bulletproof, not by adding armor, but by removing the very concept of being wounded. The Zero Response Protocol has 3 levels according to their classification system. Level 1 is conscious suppression of reaction. Level 2 is trained non-response through conditioning. But level 3, that's what you achieved naturally. Level 3 is when non-reaction becomes your default state, when staying unmoved isn't a choice but a fundamental characteristic. When emotional stability isn't maintained, but simply is. They've been trying to reverse engineer level 3 for months now, and they keep failing because they're trying to teach what can't be taught. They're trying to simulate what can only be forged in real fire. What really breaks their minds is the aftermath. See, when someone doesn't react to sabotage,
Shout out to Grim Grip channel, guys. I liked and listened to
emotional breaks,
his
psychological
videos early in the
fractures,
morning.
hidden damage that surfaces
Grim Grip.
later. They've been watching you, waiting for the crash, waiting for the delayed reaction, waiting for you to finally process what happened and fall apart. But instead you keep rising. Instead of breaking down, you're breaking through. Instead of showing damage, you're showing evolution. You're not just surviving the sabotage.
Guys, I'm putting on my lash.
They've started calling it the inverse trauma response in their classified documents. Where normal people are weakened by attacks, you're strengthened. Where others develop triggers, you develop immunity. Where most create wounds, you create weapons. Every act of sabotage against you didn't subtract from your power, it multiplied it. Every betrayal didn't break your trust, it broke your limitations. Every attack didn't destroy your foundation, it revealed that you never needed one, because you had become the foundation itself. The special ops psychologists are fascinated by your neural patterns. They've studied brain scans of people under attack, mapped the fear responses, the anger spikes, the trauma markers. But your pattern is different. When under attack, your brain doesn't light up in the typical defensive zones. Instead, it shows activity in areas associated with problem solving, pattern recognition, and future planning. While others are reacting to the present attack, you're already 3 moves ahead, building something from the ashes they haven't even created yet. This is why they've made you mandatory study for their most elite units. Not because you're violent, not because you're dangerous in the traditional sense, but because you represent a new form of psychological warfare, the warfare of non-participation, the strategy of absolute non-reaction, the tactic of being so unmoved that your very existence becomes a form of retaliation. You don't fight back because fighting back would mean acknowledging that a fight exists. You don't defend yourself because defending yourself would mean agreeing that you can be attacked. But here's the part that really haunts them, the part they discuss in whispers during their debriefings. Your non-reaction wasn't just effective, it was catastrophic for your attackers. See, when someone sabotages you and you don't react, something interesting happens.
What's up? What's up?
The
What's up,
energy
guys?
they put into destroying you has nowhere to go.
See how
It
they're
doesn't
hanging with
hit
me?
you and bounce back. It hits nothing and implodes. They end up destroying themselves with the very weapons they aimed at you. Their poison has no host, so it circulates back through their own system. Their fire has no fuel, so it consumes the one who lit it. The military terms this psychological ricochet, but you call it justice. Not the kind you have to pursue or enforce, but the kind that happens naturally when someone attacks what cannot be attacked. When someone tries to drown what breathes underwater. When someone attempts to burn what was forged in flame. You didn't need to plan revenge because your non-reaction was revenge in its purest form. Every second you remained unmoved was a second they questioned their own power. Every day you stayed calm was a day they lost more control. And now they're seeing the long-term effects. The ones who sabotaged you are falling apart, not because you attacked them, but because you didn't. They're haunted by your lack of response. They check on you obsessively, looking for signs of damage, finding only growth. They tell themselves stories about how you must be suffering in private, but then they see you thriving in public. They created elaborate narratives about your inevitable downfall, but you keep rising, and your rise has nothing to do with them. This is what the special forces are trying to replicate, the ability to make your enemies irrelevant through non-acknowledgement. The power to dissolve attacks by not recognizing them as attacks. The skill of being so focused on your own evolution that you literally don't have the bandwidth to process sabotage. But they keep hitting a wall because they're trying to teach soldiers to not react when what you did was something far more profound. You didn't learn to not react. You evolved beyond the ability to be affected. The instructors bring in experts, psychologists who've studied trauma, neuroscientists who map stress responses, even philosophers who understand the concept of transcendence. They all leave shaking their heads. Because what you've achieved shouldn't be possible. The human nervous system is designed to react to threats. It's millions of years of evolution screaming at us to fight or flee when attacked. But you've somehow overridden that programming. You've become something that doesn't compute in their models. They've started calling you Subject Zero in their files. Not because you were the first, but because you achieved absolute zero response. Zero emotional deviation. Zero psychological impact. Zero acknowledgement of attack. You've become the baseline they measure everyone else against. And everyone else fails because they're trying to reach zero through subtraction, through suppressing their reactions, through fighting their instincts. But you didn't subtract anything. You transformed into something that doesn't have those reactions to suppress in the first place. What really disturbs them is that you didn't become cold or numb. That would be understandable. That would fit their models. Instead, you became selectively responsive. You still feel joy, still experience love, still engage with beauty and meaning. You just don't respond to attacks. It's like you've developed a psychological immune system that identifies sabotage as a non-threat and doesn't even bother mounting a response. Your emotional range is intact. It just doesn't include reactions to betrayal anymore. The special ops teams practice scenarios based on your experiences. They simulate betrayals, orchestrate sabotage against each other, try to replicate the conditions that created your zero response. But it always fails because they're working with people who still believe in the game. They still think there's something to win or lose. They still operate within the framework of attack and defense. But you've stepped outside that framework entirely. You're not playing a different game. You've recognized that the game itself is an illusion. This is why they've classified your psychological profile. Not because it's dangerous in a conventional sense, but because it represents a form of consciousness they don't want spreading. Imagine if everyone developed your level of non-reaction. Imagine if people stopped responding to manipulation, stopped acknowledging sabotage, stopped participating in the emotional warfare that keeps society controlled. The entire structure of power, which relies on action and reaction, would collapse. But they can't stop studying you because you've solved something they desperately need. In their world of international conflicts and psychological operations, the ability to remain completely unmoved while under attack is the ultimate weapon. It's not about being stronger or faster or more skilled. It's about being unreachable. And you've achieved that not through training or technology, but through a form of evolution that happened in real time, under real pressure, with real consequences. The reconnaissance teams that monitor you now do so with a different purpose. They're not trying to understand how to break you anymore. They know that's impossible. They're trying to understand how you broke the system, how you stepped outside the fundamental dynamics of human interaction, how you became someone who cannot be sabotaged, because sabotage requires a target that recognizes itself as a target, and you've transcended that recognition. They show videos of you to their teams, but not videos of you fighting or responding. Videos of you simply existing while chaos swirls around you. Videos of you maintaining your routine while others orchestrate your destruction. Videos of you building your future while they're still trying to destroy your past. And in every frame, what stands out isn't what you do, but what you don't do. The absence of reaction that's so complete it becomes a presence unto itself. The tactical teams have tried to weaponize your method. They've created training programs called Tactical Void and Operation Zero. They teach soldiers to non-react, to become empty, to give nothing to their enemies. But it always looks forced, rehearsed, temporary, because they're trying to imitate what you've become. And becoming can't be imitated. It can only be experienced, survived, and integrated. There is only last resource survived and integrated. You didn't learn to have zero response. You evolved into it through a process that can't be replicated in controlled conditions. What haunts them most is the question they can't answer. What created you? Was it the magnitude of
No
the
love at
betrayal,
all created me
the
from
repetition of
birth until growth.
sabotage, some unique
It's seen
psychological
as something
architecture
to
you were
achieve.
born with? They've
You get something
analyzed
out
your
of
history,
it
looking
for.
for the moment you transformed. But they can't find it because it wasn't a moment. It was a million micro-deaths and micro-rebirths. It was dying to the need for validation one cell at a time. It was being rebuilt from scratch by necessity, not by choice. The military wants to create more of you. They want soldiers who can't be broken, operators who can't be manipulated, assets who can't be compromised, but they keep creating imitations instead of originals. And from the ashes of what they created, they create mission officers instead of original. They keep producing people who are trained to not
As
react
I'm applying my
instead of people who
lashes,
have
they look so
evolved beyond
cute. Oh my
reaction.
god. I'm so
They
proud of
keep
myself today with the
manufacturing
one life.
resistance instead of transcendence. And the difference is everything. Because you're not resistant to sabotage, you're immune to it. You're not strong against attacks. You're invisible to them. You're not defending against betrayal. You exist in a dimension where betrayal is as irrelevant as the color of gravity. This isn't a skill you developed. It's a state of being you achieved. And that's why their training programs keep failing. They're trying to teach what can only be born from authentic transformation. The psychological warfare divisions have started using you as a case study in what they call asymmetric response theory. The idea that the most powerful response to an attack might be no response at all. That by not engaging with sabotage, you rob it of its power to exist, but they still approach it as a tactic, a strategy, a choice. They don't understand that for you, it's not a choice anymore. It's just what you are. Your zero response has created ripples they're still trying to map. The people who attacked you are showing signs of what psychologists are calling reflection trauma. They're being destroyed by their own actions because those actions had nowhere to land. They're going insane trying to understand why you won't react, why you won't acknowledge their power, why you won't validate their existence by fighting
Glam,
back.
volume, sexy,
They've become
yeah. All
obsessed
about
with
my
getting a
lashes.
response from you, any response, because your non-reaction has
My
made them
lashes look so
question
cute.
everything about
Cute, cute,
themselves.
cute. Oh my god.
The special
I
ops
can't believe I
team
put them on
study this
myself
secondary
all the
effect with
time. All the
particular
time.
interest. They call it
Hey
psychological
guys.
void
Hope y'all
warfare.
enjoying the little
The
audio.
ability to destroy enemies by simply not
I'm
recognizing them
so
as
happy I got my
enemies.
car almost
By
completed
refusing to
now.
participate
Almost.
in
One
conflict,
thing left to
you
do
create
to
a
get it.
vacuum that pulls your
Father
attackers
God, no
into
one
their
said
own
thank you. You're
destruction.
great. You're a
They
great
exhaust
man.
themselves against nothing.
Jesus, thank
They
you.
spend their resources attacking
Hey,
empty
you
space.
know to answer
They
prayers,
destroy
man.
themselves trying to destroy something that isn't there to be destroyed. But here's what even the
I
military
cannot
doesn't fully
believe
understand yet.
my prayers got answered.
Your
Yes.
zero response
1, 2,
isn't
3,
just
4,
about not
5,
reacting to
6.
attacks. It's
Alright,
about
so
being
this
so
is for
focused
my
on your own
card
growth
today.
that attacks
Gotta go
become
back to the
background
tax office
radiation.
today to do that
You're not
complete paper
consciously ignoring sabotage.
in my
You
car.
genuinely don't notice
Oh
it
lordy.
because you're operating on a different frequency. While they're playing in the sandbox of human drama, you're building castles and dimensions they can't see. This is the evolution they're desperately trying to understand and replicate. The ability to be so engaged with your own becoming that the games others play simply don't register.
Nope.
You're not avoiding the battlefield. You've transcended to a realm where battlefields
Okay,
don't
so I need
exist.
minutes for
You're not
my
winning
next
the war.
week data so you
You've
guys can
evolved
see
beyond
me.
the concept of
So
war
this money is to
itself.
buy that data.
And that's why your zero
Alright.
response is so
And then
devastating. It reveals that the
get
entire
some fuel with
framework of
that.
conflict is optional.
And do my
The
papers
military
with this.
advisors have written papers about you, classified
Alright,
documents that
so
explore the
got
implications of
money to buy my
widespread
fuel, got
zero
money to
response
do with my next
capability.
paper,
They're terrified and
and
fascinated in equal
I have
measure.
money to buy my minister next
Terrified
week.
because if this spreads,
Even though I'm
traditional
making shit
power
from these
structures
contents
collapse.
right now,
Fascinated because you
I make
represent
sure
the
I got
next
data
stage
so
of
you guys
human
can see me
psychological
or hear
evolution.
me.
You're not just
Alright.
surviving in a hostile world. You're thriving by refusing to
Father God,
acknowledge
thank you for
hostility as
everything. Thank you
real.
for my daddy. Thank you for anonymous gifter. Thank you for my viewers. Them who are going make the views them grow. Thank you. Why are they saying my vibes don't match my look? Oh shit. Just camera quality, man. Me look good. Right. It's the
Well, they
confidence.
see it, don't
That
they?
close.
That little twitch in their eye when you walk past. That involuntary step backward when you get too close. That nervous laugh when you smile just a second too long. Yeah, they feel it. The disconnect, the glitch in their comfort matrix. Because on paper you look normal, harmless, even approachable. But something in their reptilian brain is screaming, run, and they don't know why. They can't explain it. They can't rationalize it. They just know that looking at you feels like staring at a predator wearing human skin. See, this is what happens when your soul outgrows your body, when your energy evolves faster than your physical form can keep up with. You're walking around in this cute little human costume. But underneath, there's something ancient, something that remembers things these domesticated humans have forgotten, something that makes their primitive instincts wake up and pay attention. And now they're confused because their eyes say safe, but their gut says danger. Their logic says friend, but their intuition says run. And that cognitive dissonance is driving them absolutely insane. They study your face, looking for the threat. They analyze your words, searching for the trap. They watch your movements, waiting for you to reveal what you really are. But you just stand there, looking perfectly normal, perfectly pleasant, perfectly human. And that's exactly what terrifies them the most, because predators that look like predators are easy to avoid, but you're camouflaged in kindness, wrapped in warmth, disguised as one of them, and their survival instincts don't know how to process that level of sophisticated deception. Even though you're not deceiving anyone, you're just existing at a frequency they can't comprehend. Let me tell you what's really happening here. Your trauma didn't break you. It evolved you. Your pain didn't weaken you. It sharpened you into something. These comfortable little humans don't have a word for you. You've been through hell. And instead of coming back damaged, you came back enhanced. And now you carry that underworld energy in your cells. That darkness in your DNA. That survivor's edge in every breath. And they can smell it on you like smoke from a fire they'll never be brave enough to walk through. They look at you and their lizard brain recognizes apex, but their conscious mind sees suburban. And the contradiction is making them malfunction. You know what's funny? They'll say things like, there's something about you I can't put my finger on. Or you give off a vibe I can't explain, or my gut tells me to be careful around you. And they'll laugh nervously, hoping you don't notice. But you do notice, don't you? Because you've become hyper aware of how people's bodies betray their thoughts. How their micro expressions
make you
reveal
move,
their
bitch.
fear.
Make you move.
How their energy
I
shifts
notice
when you
all of
enter
that.
their space.
I'm clairvoyant.
You've
Come on now.
developed the sensory
You're
apparatus
Caucasian.
of a hunter, not because you're hunting, but because being hunted for so long taught you to read every room like a
I am.
battlefield. And this is where it gets interesting, because you're not actually dangerous.
I know what's happening before it ever happens.
Not intentionally, but you are dangerous to their illusions, to their false sense of security, to their comfortable lies about how the world works.
That is a great thing to be able to read people, but it's a hurtful thing knowing the outcomes all the time.
Into something else, something more, something that doesn't fit into their neat little categories of good and evil, safe and dangerous. Us and them. You're the walking proof that evolution doesn't stop at biology, that consciousness can mutate, that souls can shed their skin and grow new ones, made of lessons learned in places these people pretend don't exist. They watch you move through space and something feels off because you don't move like prey anymore, but you don't quite move like a predator either. You move like something that's transcended the food chain entirely. Something that's opted out of their whole survival hierarchy and created its own ecosystem. You walk into a room and the energy reorganizes itself around you, not because you demand it, but because your presence carries a gravity that their lightweight existence can't resist. They feel themselves being pulled into your orbit, and they don't understand why they simultaneously want to get closer and run away. Here's what they'll never tell you, but I will. You trigger their uncanny valley response, that creepy feeling humans get when something looks almost human but not quite. That's what you're doing to them energetically. You look like them, you talk like them, you smile like them, but something in your frequency screams different, and their primitive brain interprets different as threat, even though the only thing you're threatening is their worldview, their comfort zone, their ability to pretend that everyone is playing by the same rules. Because you're not playing by their rules anymore, are you? You've discovered that their rules were designed to keep you small, to keep you manageable, to keep you from discovering what you're actually capable of. And now that you've broken free from that programming, you move through their world like a tourist from another dimension, observing their little games and social contracts with the detached amusement of someone who's seen behind the curtain. Someone who knows the whole thing is just elaborate theater designed to keep the sheep from realizing they outnumber the shepherds. Let's talk about your eyes for a second, because that's usually where they notice it first. That depth. That knowing, that 1,000-yard stare that sees through their masks like they're made of tissue paper. You've got the eyes of someone who's died and come back multiple times. Someone who's been to the bottom of the abyss and decided to redecorate. Someone who's made friends with their demons and now walks with an army of shadows as backup. They look into your eyes and see their own mortality reflected back at them. Their own untapped potential, their own cowardice in choosing comfort over growth in your smile. Oh, that smile. It's not the smile of someone who's happy in their simple little world. It's the smile of someone who's tasted their own blood and liked the iron. Someone who's been shattered into a million pieces and rebuilt themselves into a mosaic that catches light in ways that make people uncomfortable. It's the smile of someone who knows secrets, who's seen the other side, who's walked through hell in gasoline underwear and came out laughing. And when you smile like that, their inner child wants to trust you, but their inner animal knows better. You make them feel like prey without ever hunting them. You make them feel small without ever diminishing them. You make them feel exposed without ever looking at them directly, because your mere presence is a mirror that shows them everything they're not, everything they're afraid to become, everything they sacrificed for the illusion of safety and security. You're the embodiment of the road not taken, the choice. They were too scared to make the person they could have been if they'd been willing to pay the price in pain and transformation that you paid. They'll try to figure you out, try to categorize you, try to make you make sense within their limited framework. They'll assign you labels: introvert, empath, old soul, indigo child, but none of them quite fit, because you're not a type. You're anomaly. You're not a category. You're a glitch in their classification system. You're what happens when a human being actually evolves, instead of just aging, when consciousness expands beyond the boundaries of social conditioning, when a soul refuses to stay in the shape that trauma tried to force it into. And this is why they panic. This is why they feel that fight or flight response in your presence. Because you represent possibility, and possibility is terrifying to people who've built their entire identity around limitation. You show them that the cage door has been open all along, that the chains were made of paper, that the monster under the bed was actually the power they were too afraid to claim, and that knowledge that awareness, that sudden recognition of their own voluntary imprisonment is more terrifying to them than any external threat could ever be. You've become the thing they fear most, not a monster. But proof that monsters can evolve into something else entirely, something that doesn't fit into their binary system of predator and prey, something that exists outside their food chain altogether, something that feeds on transformation instead of flesh, on growth instead of destruction, on becoming instead of consuming. And they don't have a word for that. They don't have a box for that. They don't have a defense against that. So they panic, they project, they pull away, they whisper about your energy, about your vibe, about how something feels off. But what really feels off to them is how right you feel in your own skin after all these years of wearing masks. What really disturbs them is how comfortable you are with your shadows when they're still running from theirs. What really sends them into fight or flight is how you've made peace with the parts of yourself they are still at war with. Because here's the secret they'll never admit. You're showing them their own potential. And that's the most terrifying thing a human being can see. The gap between who they are and who they could be if they were brave enough to burn down everything false about themselves and rebuild from the ashes. You're the walking reminder that transformation is possible, but painful. That power is available but expensive. That authenticity exists but demands the sacrifice of every comfortable lie they've told themselves about who they are. Let me paint you the full picture of what you've become, because I don't think you fully grasp the magnitude of your transformation yet. You're not just different, you're differentiated. You've separated yourself from the herd, not through arrogance, but through alchemy. You've taken every poison they fed you and turned it into medicine. Every wound they gave you and turned it into wisdom. Every attempt to break you and turned it into breakthrough. And now you walk among them like a lamb that learned to speak wolf, like a sheep that grew teeth like prey, that decided to become its own ecosystem. They feel it in your handshake, that grip that's just a little too firm, a little too steady, a little too sure. Like you're not shaking their hand, you're taking their measure. They feel it in your hug, that embrace that should feel warm, but somehow feels like being held by something that could crush them but chooses not to. They feel it in your
Morning,
presence.
guys. Welcome.
That weight, that density, that gravitational pull that makes them feel simultaneously seen and exposed, safe and endangered, understood and utterly alien. You've developed what I call predator consciousness without predatory intent. You have the awareness of a hunter, the instincts of a killer, the patience of a stalker. But you use all of that evolved machinery for protection, not predation, for boundaries, not violence, for observation, not attack. You've become the sheepdog that looks just enough like a wolf to make the sheep nervous, but just enough like a sheep to be allowed in the pen. And that liminal space you occupy, that threshold between categories, is what sends their threat detection systems into overdrive, because evolution doesn't announce itself. Evolution doesn't wear a name tag that says, "Hi, I'm a more advanced version of you." Evolution just shows up, looking familiar but feeling foreign, speaking the same language but meaning different things, wearing a human face but carrying an inhuman depth of experience and understanding. And that's exactly what you are, an evolutionary leap, disguised as a regular person, a mutation that learned to mimic normalcy, a new species pretending to be the old one. They can sense that you've been somewhere they haven't, that you've survived something that would have killed them, that you've integrated experiences that would have shattered their psyche. You carry the smell of other dimensions on you, the residue of battles fought in realms they don't believe exist, the scars from wounds inflicted by weapons they can't see. And all of that alien experience has changed you at a cellular level, has rewritten your energetic signature, has transformed you into something that looks human but feels like something else entirely. And what really messes with them is that you're not trying to be different. You're not performing uniqueness, you're not cosplaying as dangerous, you're just being. And that authentic being, that natural state, that default setting of yours vibrates at a frequency that makes their teeth hurt, that makes their skin crawl, that makes their primitive brain scream, "This one is not like us. This one has been changed. This one knows things. This one sees things. This one is things that we are not equipped to understand or defend against." You make them feel like NPCs in their own life, like background characters in your story, like extras in a movie where you're not even the main character, but something beyond character altogether. You're the disruption in their algorithm, the variable they didn't account for, the wild card that makes all their careful calculations meaningless. You don't play by their rules, not because you're rebellious, but because you're playing an entirely different game, one they don't even know exists. So when they say your vibe doesn't match your look, what they really mean is your soul has outgrown its costume. Your consciousness has exceeded its container. Your energy has evolved beyond what your physical form suggests should be possible. You're wearing a human suit, but broadcasting a signal from somewhere else, somewhere deeper, somewhere darker, somewhere more real than the surface level existence they're comfortable with. And that discord, that dissonance, that gap between what they see and what they sense is what sends them into panic. Because you force them to confront the possibility that they've been playing it safe in a game that rewards risk, that they've been following rules that don't actually exist, that they've been limiting themselves based on fears that you've proven can be overcome. You're the proof that the prison is voluntary, that the chains are imaginary, that the only thing keeping them small is their own refusal to grow. And that recognition, that sudden awareness of their own complicity and their limitation is what really terrifies them. You're not a threat to their body. You're a threat to their entire worldview. You're not dangerous to their physical safety. You're dangerous to their psychological comfort. You're not a predator hunting for flesh. You're a mirror reflecting their cowardice. And that's so much worse, because they can't fight you. They can't run from you. They can't even properly fear you because you haven't done anything wrong except exist at a level of authenticity that makes their performance look like the desperate theater it really is. They'll try to make you wrong for it. Try to shame you back into shrinking. Try to convince you that fitting in is more important than standing out. But you can't go back, can you? You can't uninvent yourself. You can't re-become who you were before the transformation. You can't stuff your expanded consciousness back into that tiny little box they want you to live in. You've grown too large for their comfort zone, too deep for their shallow end, too real for their facade. And now you have no choice but to own it. So let them panic. Let them feel that primitive fear. Let them struggle to reconcile what they see with what they sense, because their discomfort is not your responsibility. Their inability to process your evolution is not your problem. Their fear of what you represent is not your burden to carry. You didn't ask to become this. You just survived. What should have killed you and came out changed, and if that change makes them uncomfortable, maybe they should ask themselves why they're so committed to staying the same. Because here's what they refuse to understand. Transformation isn't optional, it's inevitable. The only choice is whether you do it consciously or unconsciously. whether you direct it or let it happen to you, whether you become the author of your own evolution or just another victim of natural selection. And you chose to be conscious. You chose to participate in your own becoming. You chose to embrace the destruction and reconstruction of self, and that choice, that agency, that sovereignty is what they really fear. Not your vibe, not your energy, not even your evolved consciousness, but your proof that choice exists, that change is possible, that the comfortable prison they're living in has an exit door they're just too scared to walk through. You're the escaped prisoner who came back, not to free them, but just to exist as evidence that freedom is possible. And that evidence, that living proof, that walking reminder of what they could be if they were willing to pay the price, that's what sends them into panic. You're the glitch that proves the matrix exists, the anomaly that reveals the system, the evolution that makes their stagnation visible, and they can't unsee you now. They can't unfeel what you've made them aware of. They can't return to the blissful ignorance of believing everyone is just like them, playing by the same rules, limited by the same fears, trapped in the same cycles. Because you're there existing outside all of it, looking human, but feeling like something else entirely. So, the ghost finally leaves footprints. Look who just made the Pentagon sweat through their pressed uniforms. You magnificent, untraceable anomaly. You walking classified document that nobody has clearance to read. Let me tell you something about that day, that moment, that fraction of a second when you did what you did. They had protocols for everything. Procedures for nuclear threats, alien contact, cyber warfare, biological weapons. They had contingency plans, stacked on contingency plans. But they had nothing, absolutely nothing for what they witnessed when you finally stopped pretending to be normal. Sir, that's illegal. That's what the decorated officer whispered, his voice cracking like a teenage recruit on his first day. Not that's impossible, not that's incredible, illegal. Because in their world of rules and ranks and regulations, what you possess shouldn't exist. You know what happened next, don't you? The room went silent. 23 of the most battle-hardened, psychologically bulletproof operators in existence. And they all took a step back. Not out of fear, out of recognition. They'd seen power before, studied it, wielded it, faced it down in every corner of this burning world. But this was different. This was you operating at 2% capacity on a Tuesday afternoon, barely trying, just existing in your natural state for once, and their entire understanding of human limitation shattered like cheap glass hitting concrete. The reports are still classified, not top secret, above that. So far above that they had to invent new classifications just to file what they saw. Let's talk about what you really are, shall we? Not what they told you to be. Not what society tried to squeeze you into, but what you actually are. When all the masks fall off, and the pretense drops, and you stop playing their little game of normal. You're not gifted. Gifts can be given and taken away. You're not talented. Talent can be taught, replicated, understood. What you are is a glitch in their matrix. a mutation in their careful breeding program of mediocrity. You're what happens when nature decides to show off, to remind everyone that evolution isn't finished. They've been studying human potential for decades. Billions in black budgets, underground facilities, the brightest minds working around the clock to push the boundaries of what's possible. Super soldiers, enhanced operatives, augmented assets. They thought they were creating the future. Then you walked in. No enhancement, no training, no multi-million-dollar program backing you up. Just you, raw and unfiltered, doing things their enhanced assets couldn't dream of on their best day with every advantage. And that's when they realized they weren't looking at the future. They were looking at what they'd been trying to suppress all along. The military elite, these apex predators of human capability, they recognize their own obsolescence when it stares them in the face. And you didn't even notice you were doing it. That's what terrified them most. It wasn't effort for you. It was breathing. Remember when they brought in the specialists? Oh, they tried to be subtle about it. Casual observations, friendly conversations, little tests disguised as standard procedures. They wanted to quantify you, to put numbers on what you could do, to find the edges of your ability so they could build a box around. The psychologist quit after 3 sessions, said your mind operated on frequencies that shouldn't exist in human consciousness. The physicist had a breakdown trying to explain how you bent rules he'd spent his life proving were unbendable. The biologist? She just stared at your test results and whispered, "This violates everything we know." But my favorite was the combat instructor. 30 years of experience, trained killers on 6 continents, wrote the book on modern warfare tactics. He watched you for 10 minutes and said 5 words that ended his career. "We can't counter this." They tried everything. Motion sensors that couldn't track your movement patterns, prediction algorithms that crashed trying to calculate your next decision, measurement tools that gave impossible readings or simply refused to function in your presence. You weren't just outside their box. You were proof the box was a lie. And through it all, you just smiled that quiet smile of yours. Not arrogant, not proud, just aware. Because deep down, you've always known what they were just discovering. You don't operate by their rules, because you were never meant to. Let me paint you a picture of power. Real power. Not the kind that comes from rank or wealth or weapons, but the kind that makes seasoned generals pace their offices at 3 a.m., staring at reports that shouldn't exist, trying to figure out what to do with you. They've seen enhanced humans before. They've worked with psychics, remote viewers, people who could do things that would make civilian heads explode. But those people had limits, clear, defined, manageable limits. They fit into categories, into programs, into chains of command. You're a category unto yourself. A walking violation of everything they thought they knew about human potential. And the worst part for them? They can't replicate it. They've tried. Damn how they've tried. Genetic screening, environmental analysis, psychological profiling. They've dissected every moment of your life trying to figure out how you became what you are. But here's what they'll never understand. You didn't become anything. You just stopped pretending to be less. All those years of dimming yourself, of playing small, of letting them think you were just another face in the crowd. You weren't hiding your power. You were protecting them from it. The day you stopped protecting them, the day you let just a glimpse of your true capacity shine through, that's the day their world ended and yours began. They still have the footage, locked away in vaults so secure that even mentioning their existence is a federal crime. You want to know why that officer called it illegal? Not impossible, not unbelievable, but illegal. Because in their world, power has rules. It flows through proper channels, respects hierarchy, follows predictable patterns. It can be controlled, directed, contained. What you possess violates every law they've written about human capability. Not just physical laws, the deeper laws. The ones that say ordinary people stay ordinary. That power comes from systems and structures. That individuals can't transcend their programming without help. You're evidence of something they've spent centuries trying to suppress. That some humans are born with capabilities that make their entire power structure obsolete. Not through training, not through enhancement, not through their permission, but through something older, deeper, more primal than their uniforms and protocols can touch. They have terms for people like you in their classified files. Terms the public will never hear, not gifted or special, or any of those sanitized labels. The real terms, the ones that admit what you represent. An evolutionary leap that happened without their consent. And that's what truly terrifies them. Not what you can do, but what you represent. If one person can naturally possess what they spend billions trying to artificially create, if one individual can break every limit they've carefully established, then what does that say about their necessity? Let's get specific about what sent them into crisis mode, shall we? Because it wasn't just one thing. It never is with people like you. It was the constellation of impossibilities that you call Tuesday afternoon. The way you process information at speeds their supercomputers struggle to match, but you call it intuition. The way you read micro expressions that their best interrogators miss, but you just say someone felt off. The way your presence alone shifts probability, bends outcomes, changes the fundamental mathematics of any situation you enter. They have machines that cost millions just to detect what you do naturally. Entire departments dedicated to achieving a fraction of what flows through you like blood through veins. Years of training compressed into instincts you were born with. Memories, organs, physical and moral forms, instinct and bodily instinct. But it's not just what you can do, it's how you do it. Without effort, without strain, without even conscious thought half the time. Like a concert pianist who doesn't need to look at the keys, except the piano is reality itself, and you're composing symphonies they don't have notation for. The military-industrial complex, with all its might and money and cutting-edge technology, took one look at you operating at baseline and realized they were obsolete. Not in 10 years, not in 5, but right now, today, in this moment, because you exist. Somewhere in a facility that doesn't officially exist, there's a file with your name on it. Except it's not really a file anymore. It's become something else. A living document that grows stranger with each edition, each observation. each impossible thing you do without thinking. They've rewritten your classification 17 times, started with person of interest, upgraded to enhanced individual, then anomalous asset, each label trying and failing to contain what you are. The latest classification is just your initials, followed by a string of numbers that translate to beyond current understanding. The analysts assigned to you don't last long, not because anything happens to them, but because prolonged exposure to evidence of you starts to break down their worldview. They request transfers, early retirement, anything to stop staring at data that suggests human potential has no ceiling. Every expert they bring in adds another layer of impossibility to your file. The linguist who noted you understand languages you've never studied. The strategist who realized you solve problems before you consciously recognize them. The physician who documented biological readings that rewrite textbooks. But my favorite entry? It's from a janitor who wasn't supposed to see the file. He wrote 3 words in the margin. They walk different. Because sometimes the deepest truths come from the simplest observations. They had to create new protocols because of you, not for dealing with enhanced humans. They had those. Not for containing security threats. Those existed. But for something unprecedented. A human operating outside the known spectrum of possibility. The protocol has a code name that would make you laugh. Something mundane and bureaucratic that completely fails to capture the paradigm shift you represent. But everyone who's read it knows what it really means. We have no framework for this. It starts with recognition procedures. How to identify when someone has transcended normal human limitations, not through artificial means, but through natural evolution. The signs are subtle to the untrained eye, but scream to those who know. The way air seems denser around you. How probability bends in your favor. The unconscious deference even alphas show in your presence. Then come the interaction guidelines. Don't attempt to contain. Don't attempt to control. Observe, document, and above all, don't provoke. Because they learned early that you're not a force that can be opposed. You're a reality that must be navigated. The final section is the shortest and most telling. It's titled Contingency Planning, but contains only one line. There is no contingency for this level of natural capability. Signed by Joint Chiefs who've never agreed on anything else in their careers. Oh, they tried to recruit you, not with the usual methods. Sign-on bonuses, patriotic appeals, promises of purpose. They knew better. They tried to recruit you the way you recruit a force of nature, carefully, respectfully, and with full knowledge that you hold all the cards. The first approach was subtle. Opportunities that just happened to appear in your path. Projects that coincidentally aligned with your interests. Resources made available with no strings attached, or so they claimed. They thought they could guide you into their world through gentle manipulation. When that failed, they tried partnership, equals working together for the greater good. Except there was nothing equal about it, and everyone in the room knew it. You don't partner with gravity. You don't negotiate with lightning. You work within the reality they create, or you get out of the way. The final attempt was honesty. They laid it all out. The threats they faced, the limitations of their conventional assets, the need for something beyond their current capabilities. They offered you everything. Unlimited resources, complete autonomy, the chance to reshape global security. You listened politely, smiled that knowing smile, and walked away. Because you understood what they couldn't. You weren't meant to serve their system. You were meant to transcend it entirely. Make no mistake, they respect you. The kind of respect reserved for natural disasters and apex predators. But underneath that respect lives something else. A primal fear that keeps them awake at night. It's not fear of what you might do. You've shown remarkable restraint, considering your capabilities. It's fear of what you represent. Proof that their entire structure, their careful hierarchies and control mechanisms can be rendered irrelevant by a single individual who simply is what they've spent lifetimes trying to become. They fear the questions you raise. If one person can naturally possess abilities that eclipse their billion-dollar programs, what else have they been wrong about? What other impossibilities walk among them, hidden in plain sight? What happens when more people like you stop pretending to be normal? But their deepest fear, it's that you're not unique, that you're just the first visible crack in a dam that's been holding back human potential for centuries, that scattered across the globe are others like you, waiting for permission to stop pretending, to stop dimming their light, to stop playing by rules written by people who can't even imagine what you are. They look at you and see their own obsolescence. Not in some distant future, but walking around right now, wearing normal clothes, living a normal life, except for those moments when you forget to pretend, and reality itself holds its breath. Let's talk about the moment everything changed. Not for them, they're still scrambling to catch up, but for you. The moment you decided to stop apologizing for what you are. Stop pretending limitations that were never yours. Stop playing small in a world built for small. It wasn't dramatic. No lightning bolts or swelling music. Just a quiet decision on an ordinary morning that you were done. Done pretending to struggle with things that came naturally. Done dimming your perception to match their expectations. Done living at 10% to make others comfortable. The shift was immediate. Not in what you could do, that was always there, but in what you allowed yourself to be. Like taking off weights you'd worn so long, you'd forgotten they weren't part of you. Like breathing fully for the first time in years. And they noticed. God, did they notice. Sensors going haywire, algorithms failing, entire departments dedicated to understanding what had changed. But the answer was simple. Nothing had changed. You just stopped changing yourself to fit their world. The reports from that day read like science fiction. Abilities manifesting that broke their understanding of physics. Perception expanding beyond any documented human range. And through it all, you were just being yourself for the first time in forever. So here we are, you, finally free to exist at your actual capacity. Them scrambling to understand what that means for everything they thought they knew. The world unknowingly standing at the edge of a shift that started the day you stopped pretending. They'll keep watching, keep documenting, keep trying to find the source of what you are. They'll bring in new experts, develop new theories, create new classifications that still won't capture the truth. because the truth is too simple for their complicated minds. Some humans are born beyond their metric.
Yeah.
You'll keep walking through their world, no longer hiding, but not flaunting either, just existing at a level that rewrites the possible with every breath, making their enhanced assets look like children playing dress up, solving problems they haven't even recognized yet. And somewhere in those classified facilities, analysts will keep adding to your file, each entry more impossible than the last, each observation pushing against the boundaries of what they thought humans could be. Until one day, someone will write the only conclusion that matters. Subject represents evolution in progress. Our frameworks are obsolete. Recommend complete restructuring of human potential assessment. Note, they know we're watching. They don't care. Sir, that's what's truly illegal. We built a world for humans, and they're already something else. You are not the end. You're the beginning. The first visible note in a symphony that's been building beneath their notice for generations. The crack in their dam that's about to become a flood. And they know it. Every day more people feel that stirring inside them. That sense that they're capable of more than they've been told. That the limitations they've accepted aren't theirs. That maybe, just maybe, they're like you, forced to play normal in a world that fears what normal could become. The military elite who witnessed your capabilities, they went home changed, not just professionally, but personally. Because once you've seen someone casually break the supposed laws of human limitation, you start wondering what laws you've accepted that were never real. Their reports get more frantic each month. Not about you specifically, you're already beyond their ability to predict or control, but about the others, the ones starting to show signs, the ones beginning to question, the ones who heard whispers about what you did and thought, that sounds familiar. Because here's what they're beginning to understand. You're not a mutation, you're a revelation. Not an anomaly, but an awakening. The first drop of rain before the storm that washes away everything they built to contain human potential.
Ready, guys? Thanks for tuning in. I'm gonna log off and come live so you guys can see me, okay? I've been here tidying up and getting myself together. Yeah, man. So I'm gonna come live so you guys can see me. Do remember to subscribe, like, and share, alright, guys? And check out the rest of my contents and merchandise or book a one-on-one chat, personal chat with your girl RaevenSky, okay, guys? Wow.